I actually do it this time, because I normally forget, and we pick up the meeting about halfway through, which is not really the best.
You can set it up in one of the settings to record it.
Yeah.
So it records automatically.
That's it.
Yeah.
It saves you forgetting then.
Yeah. So
you might remember to switch it on.
Remember to forget not to switch it on. I don't know. You got me now. You got me thinking about thinking. So, as
long as the thoughts you're having about thinking are leading you towards thinking better ways that you can do things, that's right.
So that's right, indeed. So we got one more person coming in now. So we'll see who else comes in. And
just gonna I'll be right back, one sec.
Is this a mime class or something?
Mime class. It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It will be. Well, there's nothing wrong with a bit of silence now.
Absolutely not.
Now and then. It's,
yeah.
It can be quite inviting. I'm just going to see who else. Yeah, no. You can unmute yourself if you feel like it. So.
Hello, Giles.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Hello, Jason.
Hiya.
It's nice to see you again.
Likewise.
In front of your beautiful background.
Yeah.
Yum, 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 yum.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
how was your week?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. It's been pretty full on, but I've taken a rest day, so I'm feeling a bit more human. Yeah.
Feeling more human.
Yes.
You look like you've caught the sun.
I have been out and about with young children who didn't have enough sun protection, so I've given them my hats and scarves and things and just kind of taken the hit.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do, we're just going to give it a few more minutes to see who shows up for this. Amelia isn't going to be coming tonight. I'm not sure whether Jeanne or what's her name, Magdalena will be coming. I'll send her a little prod and see.
I always think whoever turns up is who turns up. And
well, that's kind of how I feel really about it. So whoever's meant to be here will be here today, and I'm sure we'll get a lot out of it. We've got some great people in this meetup. Elijah, I've trained with, and Jason, I've trained with. Elijah is someone that I would, when he comes back, is someone that I would introduce to you as being a master hypnotist. He's very, 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 very good. But the trouble is, you never really know whether he's hypnotizing you or whether he's being serious. He's one of those sort of people. So how's John doing?
He's very well, thank you. He's just had 10 days off of work, so he's been very rested and enjoying his other hobbies and pursuits, and the other parts of his personality have been fed and nurtured.
That's what we need, isn't it?
Yes, it's been really wonderful to be around, a partner who's come out of exhaustion and come out of perpetual busyness into his more mid-level experiences.
Nice.
It's been nice to be around.
That's good when things are like that, and you can sort of strengthen the connection and bond between you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've done some really lovely things that we wouldn't have done if we were both exhausted and frazzled.
If you weren't exhausted,
yeah.
Okay, but you've got a lot more light and a lot more energy in you than when I've met you on previous occasions, probably because you haven't got to find a lodger anymore, so I'm sure that has something to.
I'm sure that has taken the load off of the shoulders.
Well, it's kind of worked out for the best in a way from where I'm standing, because I wouldn't be able to run these meetups so easily now. I'm on a part-time contract with this bus company, so it is funny how the universe works. Works things out for us.
We weren't meant to be housemates, but we have gained a relationship out of it. Yay!
Something. It's always good. with that. I've still not ruled out moving to Brighton yet, but it won't be this year.
Yeah, it'll be on your own terms and in your own time.
That's the one, definitely.
Beautiful. Well, just drop us a call whenever you come.
Sure, I will do. Right. Okay. Well, I guess now Elijah is back. Elijah, we've got Anna Rose joining us. We've got Leo de Conrad de Souza there. I don't. Can you wave to us? Can you send us some sort of acknowledgement that you're there by any chance?
I'll wave on his behalf.
Yeah, we'll wave. Hey, good evening. Okay, so well, as we've got such a small group, we may go off piste a little bit. Well, let's go through a quick recap of what we did.
It's a good learning. It's a good learning practice to do a recap. You know, it's like we recap to ourselves as much as to other people.
So, okay, well let's begin then. So, welcome to this third seminar. I'm going to be reading this. It's from from my notes, so I apologize if it sounds like I'm reading from a script, because I am. So welcome to this third seminar in this series to connect with the hero in your journey and tell your story. We've covered a lot of ground already. We've spoken about frames, meta frames, positioning and pre-framing ourselves in the marketplace. And the introduction and talk given by Grant Morrell last week, who was our guest speaker, provided us with an excellent example of how we can just do that. So if you're still unsure about pre-framing and positioning, I encourage you to go back and watch last week's meeting. We've also talked about how we can use extended third-party quotes to be able to distance ourselves from the message and bypass the critical factor and reduce conscious resistance to our message. And last week, actually, at some point in there, I actually used your story of how you were telling me about your ex who was a comedian and how he could never get people to take him seriously. Not that, even though you're not supposed to take a comedian seriously, but he could never get them to pay attention unless he charged them a small fee, no matter how much. And that really resonated with me. So at some point we'll go through that as an example again tonight. This is another example of using quotes that I've come across. I just need to get the Zoom session back and see if there's anybody else trying to get in there. No, so it looks like it's just going to be us tonight. Another example of using quotes which I came across was when talking to a hypnotist. There was a friend of mine that's a yoga instructor, and she asked me what it was like to be hypnotized. And so I looked at her and I said, well, you've heard Dharma, he's a yoga instructor, say, lie down for 10 seconds and pretend that you're in a deep sleep. For the next minute, imagine that you're filled with bliss. You've experienced the power of a calming breath. You know a hypnotist can quickly take another person into a different state where you can close your eyes. Tap into the power of your imagination and find that magic that exists within your mind, where amazing things become possible. And you've heard stories about amazing things that people do when you're hypnotized. And I say this to remind you that in the mere blink of an eye, your whole world can shift, filling you with a sense of delight. You can move into that possibility space where your desires are made manifest. And while I'm here, present with you now, focusing on connecting with you and awakening that part deep inside where those desires are being sparked and fueled with momentum to become real. This is really about you connecting with that place inside you from which your best self is made manifest. Here now, the whispers of what may be becomes real in the most delightful ways as you open yourself to delightful surprises and possibilities, moving forward towards good feelings. I will always remind you of the possibilities and potentials and reorient you towards focusing on that bliss and finding that bliss tonight. So,
thank you, Giles. That was beautiful.
That's an example of using a third-party quote because you've disconnected yourself from the message that you're putting out, and getting back to the story. So this week is where the fun really starts. We're going to actually put what we learned into practice. We're going to start doing what we've already learned. We're going to begin to tell our story in the hero's journey. Would that be okay? Okay. We're going to begin our hero's journey by asking ourselves the same question that Joe Campbell asked himself, which is, who are we but the stories we tell ourselves about who we are? What kind of person is in the story you're currently telling yourself about who you are? I'm curious, is it a good one? Or is it something less than positive? And only you know the answer to that question. So here's what's going to happen. The second thing we're going to learn about is criteria and how easily we can use them to learn more about ourselves and more about the people that we seek to influence, and how we can use them powerfully to strengthen rapport and create a strong sense of connection between one another. And later, you'll learn how they can be used to influence our listeners to take the action that we want them to take and deal with anything that might be holding them back. Finally, we're going to be splitting up into groups and we're going to practice eliciting criteria from one another and introducing our partner to the rest of the group as if they were actually going to be a speaker on this show. I put up, if you look in the chat, if you look in the chat window, I put some resources up there of some suggested further reading and links to the last few videos. So these are some books. I mean, there's no, you know, you don't have to read them, but if you want to know more about what it is we're doing, I'm working my way through this book, Hypnotic Storytelling by George Hutton. I found it to be a lot of value to me in what we're trying to do here. And you know, he explains why we would, you know, some of the reasons for telling communicating with stories. I'm going to share my presentation screen now. So let's go to extended quotes. So this is where I used your example last week for pre-framing someone's objection about spending money there. So if you read it, it says, I really hate asking people for money. It's always been a bit of a taboo subject in my family. It caused so many arguments. Whilst I was thinking about that earlier, it reminded me of a conversation I had last week with Anna about money. And something she said was very profound. And I remember when I was with David Snyder on CPI4 training, and he said, "You're no good to anyone else broke. So my best advice to you is to make sure you get paid." I told him, "I'm not a good salesperson." And he said, "You don't need to be a good salesperson. You just need to be a good coach or a good mentor." And I said, "My customers don't have any money." And he said, "Yes, they do, for the things they want." And I said, "My customers are smart and they won't believe me." To which he replied, "Yes, they are very smart. And being intelligent only makes them want it more." And what he said next was so profound, it completely changed the way I look at the sales process. He said, "When you stop selling and start giving people the opportunity to get what they really want, they will buy for you naturally as default, because it just naturally feels like the right thing to do. And when they're saying no to you, they're not really saying no to you. They're saying no to themselves." And Anna told me about her ex-boyfriend, who was a comedian, and he noticed how he could never get people to stop looking at their mobile phones and talking over him and refusing to pay attention unless they paid for the event. It didn't really seem to matter, even if it was just a few pennies. It just committed them to the process of enjoying this show and having fun. Suddenly I realized that by giving away what I value for free, I was devaluing myself. People tend to automatically put a higher value on experiences they paid for than the ones they get for free, no matter how small the contribution. So this is what we call an omega strategy. It's designed to lower people's resistance to the persuasion that's going to follow in this. And then I come back and close the loop by telling what you told me with that, and saying, you know, people stop looking at their mobile phones and all that sort of thing if they just committed just a few pennies. And now I suddenly realized that by giving away what I value for free, I was really just devaluing myself. You know, and that when someone says no to you, they're not really saying no to you. They're saying no to you, to yourself. I mean, can you see how that? Can you understand the structure of that and how that?
I can. It's a way of interrupting my habitual thinking on the topic by taking myself out of my story into another story for a little while that bypasses my need to like cling to the first original story. It's like it disrupts it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, they say that by the time you go into 3 levels of stories with that you have virtually got no conscious resistance to the suggestions that are being made within that. People like, I don't know whether you're familiar with the life coaches like Tony Robbins and T. Harv Eker or people like that. They're very good at getting people to extract money out of your wallet, and this is the sort of strategy that they use with doing that. They'll tell a story and then they'll jump into another story that may even be completely unrelated. I mean, these stories are slightly related, so they're plausibly they're plausibly related, but it's not clear about which. And they'll put their suggestions in there. They work more on the alpha strategies, which are to do with getting people to take action now, rather than to lower their resistance to persuasion. The omega strategies are more feminine. They're to do with sort of like with lowering resistance and putting things in place like guarantees, talking about how other people experiences and how they overcame any limiting beliefs that they might have about what it was that they were going to do. So that's an example of using quotes for objection handling. You're quite welcome to take that and pull it apart and use it and unpick it and start using it with your own stories. But maybe for, you know, that's quite an advanced strategy. Maybe for tonight we should just see if we can stick to the plan and go through criteria and values and start to construct a story about who we are and what motivates us, what inspires us and makes us get out of bed in the day. So my stories, public speaking, really in there. You can see I've been putting these slides together on this, so they're useful for public speaking. They're and for especially for sales copy and that sort of thing, when you're putting things on your website, making friends, and for helping your family and friends. So how can we create stories that will be useful to other people? Would anyone like to give an example of how you think a story could be used?
Off the top of my head, I work within a tradition that considers stories as medicine. And if you know the right story to speak to somebody in the right moment, you can offer them a chance to realize that they are part of the human condition. So welcome them into the family of the human condition. So they're not alone. This story, you know, this story has been played out before. And offering them like the right medicine story can be as simple as taking what they're offering, showing empathy with it, and then changing one or two of the features before offering it back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great answer. The human story. That's how we learn, isn't it? From nursery rhymes and things, and things like that. Elijah,
I think the most important thing is that the story should be true. Right? You can't just make something up. And I've actually had this experience before, believe it or not, where I made up a complete story, like just for the sake of getting the effect, just made something up, and it wasn't true. And I've had the person months and months later say to me, "Oh, well, do you remember that story you told me about something and whatever it was, and it was really inspiring." And I had no idea what she was talking about because I couldn't remember the story. And that kind of leads to a large incongruency, which is no good to anyone. So it's very important that you draw off your own experiences and tell a story. A lot of people, you know, you ask them and they'll say like, "Oh, well, I don't really have that many stories." It's a little bit ridiculous and not believable from my perspective. I think everybody has stories. It's just a matter of finding or kind of fine-tuning your own mind and your way of thinking, where you can relate one of your experiences to the present situation and say, well, this is just like, and then sort of tell the story. And in your story, there will be some kind of learning or you know, overcoming of some obstacle, and then bring it back. And you'd be surprised that sometimes you think that the story was no good, but it actually has a profound effect on the other person. It's surprising just how well it works with people. And you know, don't sort of sell yourself short and your experiences short. I'm sure that there is a wealth of memories and experience within each of us that we can use, that we right now we might not think in this moment that they are relevant or useful, but I'm sure they are. It just depends on
we got a bit of internet how to share with you, Elijah?
Just for the last sentence, Elijah, or with you right up until the last sentence. Yeah.
Sorry, microphone died.
There you go.
I was just saying, I'm sure like people should not sell themselves short. You know, a lot of times you might not think that your story has value, but I'm certain that each of us has a wealth of memories and experiences that could be useful. It just depends a little bit on context and timing. You know what I mean? The situation.
That's
and it's important to be sort of brave enough to speak, and because at the end of the day, if your story is not helpful, the other person's just going to forget it. They're not gonna bad mouth you or say something bad about you or think less of you. They're just going to disregard it. So there's really no downside to it. You know what I mean? You can tell it could either be profoundly life-changing or it'll just get disregarded and forgotten. So, you know, there's no kind of negative effect. You know, as long as you're coming from the right place, and the right place, when I say that, I mean, you know, like your intention is to help the person. Do you know what I mean? If your intention is to somehow screw them over and get money out of them and stuff, then it's not going to work. Because, well, I don't really have time to go into why it doesn't work.
It
because
just won't.
But
they'll feel it from
there
you.
There are mechanisms in place that will not allow for it to work when it's selfish like that. And I will remind everybody that karma is a bitch. Do you know what I mean? So just do good things, and it will come back tenfold, because karma can be wonderful as well if you have it on your side. You know.
I have to admit, I have had experiences with other people that tell stories, and sometimes certain people will tell a story to you and it feels more like an installation. That's when you know that someone is trying to influence you in a way that's not necessarily in your best interest, because it will feel more like an installation than it will a story. If the story flows naturally and it's authentic, I don't personally believe that it has to necessarily reflect our own experience. It can be an experience of someone else that we know that had a similar situation, and as you think about how they solved the problem, it could even be from one of your favorite movies or something like that, about you know, how the hero in that journey solved a particular problem and the lessons they learned. What I would encourage all of us to do on this is to start keeping a journal, and as people tell you about their problems, it could be anyone, it doesn't have to be someone that you deal with in a therapeutic environment or anything like that. When they talk about a problem that they had in life, just go inside and find and ask your unconscious to find all the examples of people who have had similar situations and how they dealt with those problems. And as you do that, think about the lessons that they learned, the emotions that they might have been going through as they were feeling, as they were experiencing the difficulty, the challenge that they were facing, and how they overcame them and how they're different now. And if you can encapsulate that into a small anecdote, or you know, just a small like a micro story, then you can use that to influence people in quite a profound and helpful way.
Yeah, Giles, if I could just piggyback off of that, what you just said.
Yeah.
Even like, if you don't have an experience that is anything like the person's current predicament, right? All you do is you say, do you know what? I can't even imagine what that must be like for you. I've never had to go through something. I'm sure it's challenging and you're doing the best you can. However, I did have an experience when, and just tell a different story that is not related at all, but still has that same element that you were talking about, that there was some challenge and they did overcome something and how they're different now. And they themselves will find within themselves ways to link what you said back to their own scenario. You don't have to do, like, if you, what Charles was saying about when something feels inauthentic, it's almost like an installation. It's almost as if the storyteller is trying to force a sequence of events, or a potential sequence of events going forward, onto your thinking of how you could handle whatever it is you're doing. But what I'm saying is that the story can be, you can show empathy and say, listen, I don't even know what it will be like for you to go through that. You know, I've never had that challenge, and tell something that's completely non-analogous to it, that there's no real connection between the two stories other than the meta level of there was a challenge, it was overcome, and in the end it was different from the beginning. And allow the other person to make the connection themselves. Oftentimes it's much more powerful because it's not forced, and the meanings and the connections of how that story relates to them is something that they come up with on their own, rather than something that you're telling them. And I think that's much more powerful, because like as a hypnotist, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn personally was to not take credit for my work. You know, a lot of times people will come along and they'll say, well, yeah, my problem's fine now and I feel much better, but I don't think it was the hypnosis. It's like, while you were talking, I had another thought that was completely unrelated to what was being said, and now everything's all right. So, and they think that they fixed it themselves by having that thought. But like, I can't sit there and go, well, no, I need to connect the dots for you. This is what I said, and then this is what happened, and that's the embedded suggestion that led you to this train of thought. You know, you've got to let go of all that, let go of your ego, and be okay with other people being triumphant. You know, and not having to be not having to have the glory yourself. As long as you got paid for your session, or as long as you got whatever your outcome was out of it, you should let them have their moment as well. And I think that's important.
Right on. Thank you for sharing that, Elijah. It's consistent with other experiences I've had, where if the meditation I'm being offered is too specific, then that can be a bit of a turn off. Whereas if they just say, follow a path, I can fill in my own path. I can decide if it's gravelly or if it's meandery or if it's dappled. Whereas if somebody says to me, you know, crunchy, white, I feel like I'm being like restricted in my options of how to visualize that. But the cues can be subtle enough to like let people fill in some of their own information in the journey.
Yeah,
or kind of inviting them on.
David, do you know David Snyder? I don't know how many people.
Giles has mentioned.
So David says, if I can just quickly, sorry, Giles, I don't mean to like.
I want this to be as interactive.
But David says that what you want to do is like give them. Do you see the bottle? Right, you want to kind of give them the bottle, but not the drink inside. Right, so like this bottle could be filled with coffee, could be filled with orange juice, could be filled with water, it could be filled with Coca-Cola, whatever. Right. Okay. But it's too specific. So what you want to do is you want to kind of give them the bottle, not the drink inside. So he talks about being artfully vague.
Yeah, love it.
And kind of giving enough so that they have the structure. Yeah. But not the content. You don't want to give them the content. You want to let them do their own content and fill in, like you said, you know, you fill in the path yourself. But the fact that there is a path is the structure, and that's what they give you.
Yeah, we're providing the container and they're pouring themselves into it.
That's whatever it is they want to use it for.
Yeah, right on.
Can you just go through that again for Magdalena's benefit, because that's something that I that I think she might benefit from understanding this, because people will, in my experience, people will never resist their own, what they imagine with their own mind. If you're too specific, you're doing the imagining for them.
Yes.
You see, people will resist what you tell them. They won't resist what they conclude. Right? Are we being waved at? Is Magdalena trying to get our attention?
Yeah. Good evening, Magdalena, and welcome to
I think
this Tuesday night, third edition.
Can you hear us, Magdalena? Let's make sure she can hear us before we repeat it.
Probably needs to unmute herself.
The picture seems frozen, so just give her a minute.
Yeah.
She might come back, and then I can repeat it when she comes back.
Yeah, sure, at that point. So we're going to be in I'll see if she comes back in a moment, but yeah, this is probably probably a little bit a little bit of revision for Jason and Elijah, but for Anna Rose's.
I'm quite new, bear with me.
I love revision, don't worry. We love revision.
We all need
you can't get too much of the basics.
Stuff.
I agree. Novice mind. Go back to novice mind.
No,
you know this mind.
the most important stuff. Do you remember the story about the guy who fills the beaker with the rocks? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
So here's your example, right? So I was in a David Snyder training, and he told us a story about this substitute professor who came into a class for university, and he had this giant beaker and he filled it with rocks. And the rocks were like really big chunks of rock. Do you know what I mean? So they were odd shapes, and they kind of didn't fit together, but they kind of put them all into the beaker until he couldn't put any more. And then he asked the students, is the beaker full? And they said, no, it's not full. There are gaps between the rocks. So he took a sack of pebbles and he poured the pebbles in, and the pebbles would fill up the gaps in between the rocks. He said, well, is it full now? And some of them said, yes, it is full. And others said, no, it's not. So then he took a bag of sand and he pours the sand in, and the sand went into all the teeny tiny spaces that were in between the pebbles and the rocks. And it really just filled it up. And he asked them, well, is it full now? And almost all the students agreed that, yes, it is full now. So then he took a pitcher of water and poured the water in. And they went, all right, okay, fine. It wasn't full, but it is now. And he said, well, what's the meaning of the lesson? You know, like what's the point of this? And the students said that, oh, well, no matter how much you put in, you can always put more. And he went, no, that's not the moral of the story. That's what I wanted to say, the moral of the story. He said, what it is if you don't put the big chunks in first, you'll never get them in. Right? So if you filled it up with water first and then try to put rock in, you'd just overflow. Right? So that's why you can never get too much of the basics. You know what I mean? So it's okay to do revision, because those are the big chunks and those are the most important ones. So that's something I learned in David Snyder. There's your story. There's a story for each of us.
That's a great example of an anecdote, and it's highly relevant to what we're doing. So as we go back to basics with that, I'm going to start doing an exercise with criteria and values on there. So if you can open the Word document up that we've got for these example exercises, I'm wondering if we could split up into to sort of, how many have we got now? We've got two of us. Shall I work with you, Jason, and you work with Anna Rose, Elijah?
Sure.
Works for me.
That works for me. Let's see if we can set. Okay, so I'll see if we can. I'll stop the screen share and see if I can create a breakout room. However we do that. So assign manually. Room 1. So that's you, and then how do I create a room? Or should we? Or do you want to work as there's so few of us? Should we just work as one group? Do you think?
I think it's good to do it as one group, because the other thing, Charles, because I've been doing Zoom meetups for a while, so it will only record wherever you are.
Yeah.
So you won't have the example, like if we split into 2 rooms and you're only in one room, you only have that example from that room on recording rather than both. Whereas if with a small group, if you stay all together, then you get everybody's example.
Okay, well let's do that then. But if you can try and type in what values they give you for the answers as you elicit their.
You want me to type them in the chat, or should I just? I mean, I was just going to make notes, but
put them in the document. And if you click on that Word document that's in the.
Yeah, I'm going to jot it down on a piece. I have this thing. I prefer pen and paper to typing. Yeah.
Get old school, Elijah. Whatever works for you.
I think there's a kinesthetic element to it.
Yes, my darling. Yes, I'm the same.
I get that completely. It's just so that they have a record of. I suppose you can watch the video and get the values back. Really,
you can always copy it in later and send them the document. That's fine.
Yeah, that's the kind of the idea. So Magdalena's tried to join us again, but she's got must have real problems with her internet. So yeah, who wants to go first? Shall I kick it off by asking
as a subject or as a operator?
Well, let's work as an operator. Well, yeah, let's explain a little bit more about what criteria and values are.
I'd really appreciate a tiny little bit of context before we do the exercise, because I don't feel like I understand really what the criteria. I mean, I know the word, but how are you using it in this exercise? That would be really helpful for me.
Let me share the screen again.
Thank you.
Get that up. I'm going really off on tangents tonight.
We're having a meandering journey this evening.
We are. We're more so than normal. So let's just play that as a slide there. So, this chat window. I can't use the mouse when I've got the chat window open on this. So, beliefs are what create the world that we live in. I mean, the very fabric, the fabric of our reality is stitched together by our beliefs. Mm-hmm. And criteria are what drives that world. And what the happiness could be an example of it's probably more of a value than a criteria. The criteria is more how the things that tell you that you feel happy. Things like that. Let's give somewhere. There's another slide where these are examples of criteria that motivate people as we walk through this world. More money, better relationships.
So would it be appropriate to consider them like a slightly different version of like personal goals?
It's like
is this important?
It's like it's how you define
the things that are important.
Do you know what
your values?
Nominalization is? Do you know what a nominalization is?
No.
Okay, so nominalization is it's literally when you use an adjective as a noun in linguistics.
A verb as a noun, you mean?
A verb as a noun.
Something that we do.
Right. A verb as a noun. But in reality, it's when something is frozen or like it's something you can't put it in a bucket. You can't put it in a bucket or a wheelbarrow. It's like you like say confidence as an example, right? You can't go to the supermarket and buy a kilo of confidence.
Sadly, no.
Right. So when I say the word confidence, everybody hears the word confidence and they think they know what I mean when I say confidence, right? But really what they know or what they're understanding is their own definition of confidence.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you ask me, well, Elijah, how do you know when you are confident? And I tell you the reasons, the evidence that I'm using to support that word, right? That's my criteria. So confidence would be like the state or the value or whatever, right? Or the belief. And the criteria is how do you know when you're getting it?
Thank you.
Right. And so I might use one of these kind of things like, oh, I feel really safe and I have support and I have freedom and I'm not experiencing pain and I'm being validated, like the things on this slide. That's how I know I'm confident. Right. Now, when I turn around and say that, the other people listening might say, oh, well, that's not confidence, that's arrogance. Right. And so they might have the same criteria that I use that leads to confidence might lead them to a different label, which they call arrogance. So it's a question of asking, well, how do you know? Or how can you, what evidence are you using to support the thing that you're saying to describe whatever it is you're describing?
Yeah. How would you recognize that you were in that state, you at that space?
Yeah.
What might it feel like in your
So
body?
that's what, and the thing is, people, well, I think Giles is going to go there now, is people can't go against their criteria.
Okay.
It's very hard. Very, very hard. Once you get someone's criteria and you say, well, the way to get what you want is through going on this path, and by not going on this path, you're not going to get it. It's going to be very difficult for the person to give that up. And so it's very influential.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
You work very closely with your values. They're important. What's important to you in any context?
Yeah, so like I might call that my core values, you know, the things that I will prioritize above all else. And
it's just the, yeah, exactly. But whatever the core, when someone gives you a core value, it's going to be a label.
Yeah. And then you want to understand what they mean.
When you dive in, you want to know what the criteria is that applies to that label. That's what we're getting.
We're talking about surface structure.
Under the value or under the belief or inside of, you know, what is the evidence that they're using to support it. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you.
Sorry about this. Someone's been that, what's his name? That other participant was writing stuff on the screen, which I didn't really like. So I kicked him, I booted him out, especially if he didn't show his face.
How could he do that?
I really don't know, but suddenly, did you not notice those lines suddenly appearing on the screen?
I just assumed you were doing it.
Pardon?
I assumed you were drawing something to illustrate.
No, I wasn't. I completely lost control of my screen in that moment as well.
He's a hacker. Kick his ass out.
So he's gone now. So let's.
Giles, let me ask you, what was important to you about that?
What was important to me was about how it disrupted my thought processes and to pay attention off listening to Elijah, because I know Elijah has such a powerful, compelling message to give, and he explains things beautifully to people.
So I'm curious, Giles, what's important about not being disrupted and really listening to what I have to say?
Well, it gives me an opportunity to learn something new, to expand upon the knowledge that I already have, and to begin to think about how I might use it in more meaning and purposeful ways.
That's right. And so when you think about learning new things and expanding what you've learned and finding new ways to apply it, ultimately, what's important about those things?
Well, it allows me to communicate more persuasively, more congruently, and more pervasively.
Excellent.
and improve my
That's
relationship.
important. That's important, isn't it? Communicating congruently and pervasively.
Basically,
And so I don't know if you'd be interested, but I actually have a meetup that I run on Sundays, and we do talk about communicating more pervasively and more congruently in a way that is focused around learning and expanding what you've learned, so that you can do that more better, like with your clients and with everyone else that you interact with. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
I think, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, that is very. I mean, once you go a few levels deep on the criteria, it's very hard for the person to say no, because you're getting to the real core of what it is they want.
Yeah.
You know, it's very hard for them to say no. You know,
that was very beautiful.
He's playing along with me now anyway. He's, you know, I mean, he's already been invited to my meetup before today. But like it's the idea is that show an example of the exercise. And Jason started us off, so thanks for that, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason's a sly one. You got to keep your eye on him, you know.
Well,
He's the ninja influencer of the
we're all good at what we do, you know. We can just slip it in. But Anna, what's important to you about family?
Oh, you've gone for a really dicey area straight off the bat.
Well, let's start where we need to go on.
Yeah, okay, cool. What's important to me about family, that the next generation that are coming in are not as damaged as the generation that raised me, and that I step into that void to interrupt the patterns and habits of intergenerational abuse and conflict and alcoholism, and step into a different life choice for the generation that comes after me and for myself. That's what's important to me about family in this moment. So there you go. Quite intense. You asked.
Keep going, Jason. Keep going, Jason.
That's good. You got an answer.
Yeah.
You started off and you said to stop people being the same way you were previously in life. Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah. I guess I meant more the generation that came before me, but I guess up until the point at which I decided not to perpetuate that, I was complicit in it. Yes.
Okay. So there was a generational problem before, and now you want to stop it and move it on so it's better moving forward. Is that right? Cool, cool. And what's important to you about that? What would that get for you? Do for you?
What would that get for me? Oh my goodness. Just to see like joy and comfort and ease in the faces of those who I loved, and for family interactions to be fun, collaborative, generative, loving engagements.
Okay. When you say joy,
yeah,
what do you mean specifically? Give me an example of joy. What's that mean to you?
Having a jam on musical instruments spontaneously, laughter in the kitchen, free physical contact, hugs, and tumbling with children.
So you like your music?
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of music?
I like all types of music, but at the moment I've been listening to Sweet Honey in the Rock quite a lot.
Sweet Honey in the Rock.
Sweet Honey in the Rock. And that's
what's it about Sweet Honey in the Rock that you like so much?
The hope inside of deep, bitter, mournful cultural baggage, the inspiring uplift inside of all the darkness that generated the need for that kind of music. Like, yeah.
Cool. What does that get for you?
What does that get for me?
Yeah.
What does that get for me when I listen to the music? I feel like my experience has been experienced before, so I'm not alone in it. And that there's a redemptive possibility of feeling differently by facing into the difficulty and singing my songs anyway.
Absolutely. You see how you can drill down and down on this stuff. The more you go down, the more you can uncover. In fact, by using criteria and values in the way we've just done there, you can get information out of people they wouldn't tell people for months and months, or even years and years. But they know really well, they wouldn't disclose it. Yeah, and yet with criteria and values, you can unpick all the layers, go straight to the middle, and go, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, shall I?
Lovely. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask you, Elijah. Just, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. What was it that inspired you to become a hypnotist?
In the beginning, it was very selfish. It was about catching up, because I went through a very long and extended period of depression, and I wanted to make up for lost time by using hypnosis for accelerated learning. and being more persuasive and kind of working my way up the corporate ladder and you know, seducing more women and all kinds of selfish reasons like that in the beginning, because that's kind of, I didn't really know anything about it, and that's what I thought it was back then. But obviously that changed very quickly as I started getting into it and realizing what it was that it could do.
Okay, so you gosh, that's quite a good one. So you're trying to catch up and to help after having depression, and helping you to overcome it and to use it for selfish reasons and to accelerate your learning. What's important to you about accelerating your learning?
Well, I realized that time is probably the most important thing, and when people said life is short, they were not kidding. There's so many things that I would like to experience, and sometimes I wonder if I'm going to get a chance to get through the list, you know, and there might be some things that I have to prioritize and others that I might have to leave behind. And obviously you don't know even what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds, let alone 5 years, you know. So it's going to be forever changing and evolving depending on like the interactions you have and the people you meet. But if you could do accelerated learning or you know, use trance for that kind of thing, then perhaps you could get more things done on your list than you thought you could without it. And so that's kind of, it's important for that you could just get more stuff done. And just understand, it's not just about understanding people. Like a lot of people go into influence and persuasion trainings to learn how to cast spells on other people and get them to buy, and they want to learn. And I've got to a point now where I just want to know more about me. You know, I want to learn what, you know, when people talk about learning about influence, you know, I don't really want to know what influences other people. I could care less what they want. I want to know what influences me, and how can I use what I've learned about me to influence myself to take more action, to get more things done that I want to do, you know, and make my life better. That's kind of where I'm at with the accelerated learning thing and the whole appeal of accelerated learning.
So you want to know more about yourself and how you can use that to make your life better. You seem like someone who knows themselves pretty well. I mean, what's important to you about knowing yourself better?
Okay, so this is a big question. There is like a mirror, you know, like a magic mirror, if you like, you know, a reflection of, they say what the world you live in, the life you lead is a projection of how you are inside and the way you feel about your own life and that kind of thing. And you project your reality, you create your reality. You know, if I can better understand myself, then I can better create the world around me. And by knowing, like, rather than trying to learn how to influence me, the shortcut or the more efficient way would be to learn what is it that already influences me. You know, why do I make the decisions that I do? And in learning that, it's like when you have anchors with people in NLP. You know, a lot of people will like, oh, well, think of a feeling and think of a feeling and think of a feeling, and then I'm going to touch you here and we're going to create an anchor. Why would you do that when the person already has an anchor and you could just hijack the anchor? You know, so it's a way of improving my life and the world around me, or at least from my own perspective and the life I live and the experiences I can have, by better rather than, you see, I believe that whatever's in here is reflected out there, right? And so trying to search out there is going to take forever because it's such a big, vast world, let alone what's beyond the world and the universe and all that, right? So it's much easier for me to search inside and then reflect that out and project that outwards, I think.
That's very profound what you said about that mirror reflection and to actually create your own, the world around you. You can project your own reality onto it and improving the life of improving your own life and the world around you. It kind of reminds me of have you ever heard of the fourfold magician's law?
I have heard the magician's fourfold law. You're one of the few people I've met that actually knows it. Most people I've mentioned it to have never heard it, and David only teaches 3 of them, incidentally. Just
only 3 of them.
That up as well. David leaves one out.
Well, as you know this, would you like to explain your experience? Or
magician's fourfold law. It won't be short. You're asking me to talk for a while, you know.
Be aware of that. It's to know, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's to will and to dare. It's to know, to dare, to will, and to keep silent. So you've just explained what it means to know pretty well there, because you know yourself and you're pursuing knowing yourself on the inside. Pick one of the other ones and explain to the group what that might mean.
Well, to dare, for example, you have to be willing to take action, take chances when opportunity presents itself. Opportunity is only opportunity if you recognize it and if you act upon it. Most importantly, if you don't, then it wasn't an opportunity. It just came and slipped by, and it's gone just as quickly as it comes. It can fade away and disappear as quickly as it comes. And so without having the ability to dare to act upon it, you would never realize the potential of those opportunities. You know, so you have to be willing to give it a go, and you have to be willing to take action and to dare and to do it.
Yeah, definitely. We've got Jon has joined us this evening. Someone that I've done some coaching with in the past. Hi, Jon. How are you doing? You've joined this at the moment where we're just talking about the fourfold magician's law, which is basically to know, as in man, know thyself, as was on the Greek temple of Delphi. It's the inscription there. What was the other one? To
will, to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent.
And to keep silent. Now, I'm going to expand. I'm going to talk about the keep silent on this because that's something that applied to me quite recently. What that means by keeping silent is to keep your plans to yourself and only divulge them to the people that really matter to you in your life. I'll give an example of something like this. That's quite dear to my heart. Now, some of you know that I drive a bus part-time to top up what I do, and I was planning to move to Brighton quite recently, and I got a job lined up to do that. I even got accommodation lined up because I was going to be sharing a house with Anna, and I went back to the people that I work with, and I told them about this job that I got in Brighton, and what have you. And of course, it didn't. Everything went along smoothly and what have you until we got to the medical. And then the doctor found something. I'd been diagnosed with depression at some point in my life, and the doctor decided that that they wanted a medical report, and then it got put out for another 5 weeks because this doctor could only run medicals on a Wednesday. And then, of course, I go back, and then 5 weeks come, and I go for the medical, and then the doctor comes up with another set of problems and another thing that they want to answer. And the goalposts just kept shifting out with this. And eventually, at the finish, I had to concede to all my colleagues that I wasn't going to be going to Brighton after all, and that I was going to, that my plans had changed, and I was going to be doing something else. So the moral in that story is that keep your plans to yourself. If you say you're going on holiday somewhere, don't actually let anyone know until you book the tickets and they're in place.
So you've come back with photos.
Exactly. It's okay to turn around and say, I might go to France next year or something like that. But don't actually put all your heart in, because every time you say it, every time you actually verbalize to your colleagues, the people you care about your plans, you're actually disempowering yourself. You're taking away the magic of you're taking away your own magic by doing this. This is why why it works so well when you're treating depression with people and things like that, because you're encouraging people to talk about their things, and just by talking about them, you're taking the sting out of them, the power. They're not bottling it up inside anymore. But if you've got something that you really want, you lustfully want, and you've just got a ferocious resolve to go out there and get it, keep that inside, because it will keep percolating inside of you through every fiber of your being until you get to where you want to be. But as soon as you tell anyone else, you just deep attention, you take all of them. It's like letting the air out of a balloon. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. It flies in the face of other received wisdoms, but it does make sense that if we fritter away the energy chips willy-nilly, that we are diminishing at a time when we might need to be doing some percolating or some composting or some containment around that idea before releasing it into the world.
Brilliantly put. It's like doing the opposite of what you do when you say you need to decompress. Sometimes you need to concentrate that fire inside your heart, don't you? And let it drive your passions forward.
Which can be really complicated if we need allyship while we're bellowing our own forges. Like, damn, I'm going to need somebody else to be with me for this. It gets a little bit complicated, but I understand the principles that you're sharing. Thank you.
Would you, Elijah, would you like to elaborate, or John?
Yeah, it's kind of like when a kid comes and says, "Oh, I saw a monster under the bed," or "There's a monster in the room." The first thing you do is you go in, you turn the lights on, you look under the bed, and look, let's have a look. No, I don't see him here. No, let's have a look in the closet. No, we don't see it there. And what you're doing is, by talking about it, it's almost like the old adage: a problem shared is a problem halved. Right? You have this. They've got this idea that there's a monster in the room, and it's the longer they don't talk about it, the stronger it gets. Right? Until it'll start, it'll start consuming their thoughts. Even when they're at school, they'll be thinking, "Oh my God, I'll go home at some point. I'm going to have to sleep, and then I'm going to." It's going to distract you from all sorts of things, right? What you're doing really is using that same principle in reverse.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is talk, by all means, talk about your problems. Don't ever bottle up your problems. Let them out. But when it's a good thing, when it's a positive thing, you should let that, I'm going to use a term here, which not everyone might agree with, but let the sort of energy or the psychic energy of that kind of begin to allow it to build pressure, allow it to become an obsession within you. If it's something you want, it's something you desire, it's something that's good for you, you know, you don't tell the world your plans, you show them your results, right? And you're just using the same principle in inverse, because if it works that way for bad things, it must also work the same way for good things on the other end of the scale.
Okay, I was going to say now, Jon's come into the room. Would you like to introduce yourself quickly, Jon? Or,
Yeah, of course. So hello, everyone. My name is Jon, and what should I say? Yeah, I'm from Switzerland, and I'm 20 years old, and I moved to England with 17, and I'm here now in London, my flat, and yeah, it's great to finally meet all of you. I used to work with Giles on the, how do you say that? Hypnosis. Yeah, hypnosis. And so that's how we met, and glad to be here. As well. Is it Anna?
It is Anna.
Anna. You touched on something you said about, but what if you need help? So could we go deeper into that? Because that's a good, I feel like that's a good point as well. Because there are moments where you have this thing, oh, I have this idea, but then you're like, okay, but I need help on this. I know which person to ask.
Yeah, right on.
But how do you ask without letting out all this, like, oh my God, I've got this idea and all these things, and then it's all out. So how do you have this kind of balance of asking for help, but still keeping the bottle on the tin?
Thank you, Jon. Because yeah, the point I'm at now is some of the things that I want for myself, I need to collaborate with others to bring in. So how do I keep that balance between what needs to be cooked here and what needs to be shared out there? But I guess that's probably a personal thing. But yeah, happy to hand it over to the floor. What does anybody else think?
Elijah, have you got any?
It's I mean, it's going to be, you have to use your noddle a little bit, you know. You have to kind of there's no one size fits all answer here. But it's going to be a like, you know, keeping it on a need to know basis kind of thing. And you know, I need help. Let's say I'm making t-shirts, right? And I need someone else has the printing press for the t-shirts, right? And I need their help to print them. But they don't need to know the full extent of my plan. They don't need to know that I have buyers lined up in South America, and that's where I'm going to be making my big push and my big marketing and all they need to know is, I have this design, can you put it on a shirt?
Yeah.
And let's see how it works, and then I'll give you feedback as to, okay, you know, this color is too bright, or the template is too small, or, you know, I'd like it maybe change the logo slightly, or whatever it is, right? It's you tell the parts that you need to tell, and the overall, like, there is always this little central part that, no, like, even your closest person, you know, your wife, husband, or, you know, your brother, sister, or whoever is your closest person, best friend, even they don't know everything about you. There's always, you know, and you can start to almost treat your business ideas and your life plans in the same regard, that there is a certain level that I won't tell anybody. And that's not to say that you can't tell anybody. Everybody needs counsel of a close personal unit of people that they trust. But it's only once you have that trust, it's only once, like I would say, you know, I can count my real friends, I can count on one hand, maybe 3 people that are, you know, if you don't count my brothers, because I really trust my brothers implicitly, they're like my two favorite people in the whole world. But besides those two, my friends, I have maybe 3 real friends that I would, and a couple others that are very close, but I just haven't known them long enough to have them break into that inner circle. You know. But there's some, you know, there's one guy in particular, one of my, who I would call probably my best friend. I've known him 25 years. You know, for me to tell him my plans is different than if I'm just telling it to someone willy-nilly, because I know him and he knows me, and we have this trust that goes back to when we were kids, and that's different. I'm not saying don't never tell anybody, right? I'm saying just keep it on the down low, and you know, reveal it as and when, you know, and you'd be surprised, you know, people like there is like, okay, so the other thing that kind of comes in opposition to this is the idea of accountability, right? Some people, you know, like some people create YouTube channels and say, oh, I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to create this YouTube channel and I'm going to put out my daily videos of me working out and having my diet and doing all this, and by people watching me, I'm accountable. And what they're doing is they're telling everybody, right? And they're keeping them, and by everybody watching, it gives them the insight. But I bet you even they are not telling you what their true final goal is. Right? Whether it's to go to a strongest man weightlifting contest or woman weightlifting contest or something, or whether it's to swim the English Channel from UK to France, or whether it's to, you know, whatever it is, their real plan. They're not telling you. You know, you might think that you know, but you can never really know.
Yeah, right on.
You know?
Yeah, that's
so
really important.
So there is, that's kind of what I have to say about that. You should ask for help. You should get help. You should collaborate. You should have a mastermind. A mastermind is a very close inner circle of people that you trust and you share out. Like this group could be considered a mastermind, right? But beyond that, especially when it comes to, like, you know, just making casual conversation with people at work or down the street or down the pub or whatever, you know, just
they'll talk you out of it.
And then negativity, you know, it's not that they don't want you to survive. It's not that they don't want you to succeed. It's just they feel bad that they themselves are not moving, and they'll tell you in an attempt to keep you safe. They'll say, oh, you know, that's really hard. Like I tried that once, and it's like I came across this obstacle and that obstacle. And really, their intention is good, but it's negative suggestion. From a hypnosis point of view, it's a bad suggestion. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so first of all, you either just ignore the naysayers, or you don't give them an opportunity to say nay in the first place by not telling them.
Yeah, right on. And share it with those that have earned the trust to, like, champion
the
cause.
Or those, or at least part, like, again, need to know basis, those who inspire, like, listen, hey, you meet someone who's done what you want to do, and you say, listen, I was wondering if you could, you know, and fully expect that they're not going to tell you everything either. Right? But you're going to ask them for help to get to where you want to go, and that kind of thing. But help is important. Don't, you know, no man is an island. No person, sorry, I keep doing the man thing. No person is an island, you know, except me. I'm Ibiza, obviously.
Elijah Island. Elijah, for Jon's benefit, would you go through with me with criteria and values for him?
Yeah, okay. So let's see this list of questions.
Just pick one. Or
so just who are you and what brought you to where you are now, Giles? Just, I'm curious.
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist. I'm a licensed NLP master practitioner. I came into hypnotherapy out of a midlife crisis, and I used to I used to be a software developer in many years ago, and my speciality was connecting computer systems that had been written by other people on different hardware with different software platforms, was they could never communicate. And I created a bridge. I created like a software fabric that allowed the bridge these computers so they could send messages to each other and get to talk to each other. And after having my own experience where I had a complete breakdown, and I thought, well, maybe if I can do that with computers, why am I having so much difficulty getting along with people? How can I, the relationships that I'm having have been disastrous and everything else. And I thought, well, surely there must be something wrong with the programming in my mind. And at that moment, I discovered David Snyder, who we both know, and I saw him hypnotize people and some of his energetic exercises, and I thought, holy shit, this stuff really works. And anyway, there I was, sat in my living room. The love of my life had gone. I'd had this dirty weekend that lasted 3 years, and all I was left with was a pile of bills and a bottle of scotch and no furniture in the house. And I sat there and I began to realize, as I looked at all the broken pieces of my life, I realized that the best thing about being broken is you're the one that decides how to put yourself back together. You're the one that decides which piece is going to go where. As you reassemble that structure of your life, and more importantly, which pieces you're going to leave behind. And as you build that structure of your life back together, it's never quite the same, but you can build it back even better and create something so much more beautiful, so much more meaningful, so much more purposeful than the life you left behind. And that's what inspired me on my journey into self-improvement influence.
It's wonderful, thank you. This is really good because we're getting two effects, because you're going to see the effect of what Giles is saying, because he's obviously practicing while he's answering, and I'm also practicing while asking for questions. So you said, Giles, that you created a bridge, right, and that allowed communication between systems.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm guessing that that's also an important part about what you're doing today in terms of putting yourself back together and getting away from the breakdown, improving relationships going forwards and things like that. What is it that's important to you about building a bridge so that you can have better communication and put yourself back together in a way that's much more fruitful for yourself?
Well, I think it's important to connect with people, to be able to connect with them in a congruent and purposeful way. For so much of my developing years, I really lacked confidence. I was a brilliant engineer, and yeah, you put me in a room full of people, and I did not have a clue. I'd be the person that would be standing on the wall and my stomach would be going like this. I've got to talk to someone. And then I'd be drinking because it made me, I didn't feel that in my stomach anymore. And then I'd get drunk and people would like me even less when I was drunk. I really, really did not like the person who I was. I thought happiness, confidence, comfort, marriage, and all of the blessings that so many people take for granted, I felt inside like a worthless piece of shit. And so if you like, I'm running away from that. You could say.
I'm curious, what's important about running away from that?
Because it allows me to just not so much run away from it, but to just let go so I can make space for something new.
And if you were able to let go, Giles, if you were able to connect with people, let go of what once was and is no longer, what would that do for you?
It would allow me to be more authentic, to be more of who I really are, and less defined by other people's opinions. It would enable me to worry less. It would make me easier to get along with, to be more fun to be around, and to just enjoy life so much more.
And ultimately, Giles, if you were easier to get along with, if you were able to let go, and most importantly, if you were able to be more of who you really are. That's right. If you're able to be more of who you really are and who you really want to be, ultimately, what's important about that?
Well, it would allow me to live my purpose and to live the life of my dreams.
Right. Can we time out for a sec? Sorry, time out. Do you guys see how his motivation switched from an away from, I'm running away from, and now it's a towards, I would be able to live my purpose. He's going towards something. It's a difference between running away and an away from motivation and a towards motivation. Now we've really got it, right? So when you're living your purpose, Giles, and fulfilling that, how do you feel as a person when you know that you're able to do that?
I just feel like a king. I feel like I've just conquered the world. And I just feel that whatever life throws at me, it's just okay. Because
excellent. And if you were, whatever obstacle stands in your way currently, now, if you were to imagine what it would be like when that is no longer an issue for you, not to say that it's not an issue now, it might be still, but if you were to imagine that at some point in the future, future will be this way for you, right? Some point in the future, right? You had made the right decision and you got to a point where you were living your purpose, and you had been for some time. You've been living your purpose for some time. So long, in fact, that the situation as it is now is something you've probably even forgotten by then, right? How would you be as a person living your purpose then?
how would I be living then?
How would you be as a person when you're living your purpose then?
Well, probably not too much different than I am now. I might be a little bit more, I might be slightly more wealthy than I am now, certainly be a little bit older, but I don't think there's too much that I would change about the way I am now, because I've done
right.
This is
and as you consider all of that, what is the smallest next step you need to take to make that a reality?
The smallest next step is to run meetups like this and to connect with amazing people like you.
That's perfect.
To watch them grow and grow.
So you know you're already on the path to becoming someone who's living their true purpose. In fact, you might well be living your true purpose already. You are learning. That's right. Even more quickly than you might realize that things are happening in ways you might not yet have imagined yourself. Doing things to create magical moments with the people you interact with, to build bridges, make connections, right? Forge relationships, improve your confidence, and all sorts of other memories that you could create on the way. That's right. That's right. And so how do you feel right now, Giles?
I'm totally in the zone. I'm actually Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Let's go. So I kind of obviously I went beyond the exercise, just because we're in a demo and he was in a good spot. So I thought we'd just do the
Run
next
with
bit.
it. Run with it.
But the exercise really was, well, you want to tell them the exercise? It was about what's important about. That's what we were doing, right? It was getting him to that core, like, what's important about this? And then he would tell me, and then I would ask him, well, what's important about what you told me? And then he would give me another even deeper reason. And then I would ask him, well, ultimately, what's important about that even deeper reason? And that's when we got to, well, I'll be living my true purpose. And at that point, I have a huge leverage, you know, to say, well, okay, if you're living your true purpose, then what about X and Y and Z? And do you know what I mean? And that is what will drive him in the direction that we want him to go. Because it's very, like we said earlier, it's very, very hard for someone to go against their own criteria.
Profound. Did you notice how the look in my eyes changed as he was getting?
You were lighting up, man. Yeah.
You introduced a profound pleasure state in someone imaginable as you get to, once you get to their highest criteria, you bliss them out, you put them in, it's an instant trance.
I agree with
Absolutely.
Magdalena. Your voice, the quality of your voice changed, Giles.
His posture changed, everything about him, just, it was, you could penalize when exactly.
I was making notes, guys. It was, just so you know, I do have my paper here, right? I was writing down key words that he was saying so that I could repeat them back to him. It wasn't all from memory. So please do use paper and pen.
Yeah,
or
we could see you reading.
Yeah.
I don't know how you manage to capture so much so quickly and give it back so consistently.
Well, it's just practice. It's just practice.
My memory needs to be tuned.
We've been doing echoing for quite a long time. And I don't know if you guys noticed the non-verbal echoes. There was, you know,
non-verbal echoes. No, you can say something about it.
Yeah, I just like mirroring his gestures and stuff, you know, like when he said living my true purpose, I did the same gesture when I was talking about living your true purpose. You know, it's non-verbal echo. Just to put, it's like using his anchor, his own personal anchor that he has already in place.
So a gesture like this would be an anchor, or is it an anchor?
So it can be, it depends. When he says it, whatever, if he says something that's really strong,
yes, and
he does a gesture at the same time,
yes,
then that could be an anchor. Yes.
So the gesture would be connected to something. I'll give you an example. My niece's boyfriend is a DJ. He was apologizing to his viewers, and every single time he used the word apologize, he was putting his hand on his heart, as if to say, from the bottom of my heart, this wasn't my fault, you know.
Right.
Talking, and again. So you can say that this person has this gesture connected to something which is really close to their heart.
Yeah, and if you wanted to ever apologize to him, all you would have to do to make him understand is do that as you do it.
Yes.
And he would understand, because he would understand that on an unconscious level.
Yeah, as
so
his own
you
language.
Consciously get the apology verbally and unconsciously get it with the anchor.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And now one more question to you. You reached very far to the beginning of a conversation with Giles, and you referred to the bridge he was talking about in the very beginning. I'm assuming there was a reason for it.
Just to create, it's
because you used his
own
because
we have the different levels, right? So I asked him in the first level, he mentioned the bridge, right? Yes. In the second level, he mentioned relationships. In the third level, he mentioned connecting with people. And the deepest level was living your purpose. So I took one from each level.
Oh, I see. Okay.
When I'm mirroring it back, I do one example from the first level and then one example from the second level. I echo one from the first level, one from the second level, or as many as I can remember. You know, sometimes you miss one. Obviously, it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the thing. It's just another way of firing even more in his brain, so that we really get it. Like if you were to connect his brain to an EEG machine and watch it, his brain would light up on multiple levels as it was happening. And that's the thing. The more widespread neural activation, that's what they call it, widespread the neural activation is, if we can get his body involved with it, it'd be even more, right? Then it's just going to become super powerful, and it's going to be very hard to resist.
So every question, what is important about this, you go into the next level and you're making a note of the word he's leaning on, or
in the previous level and in this and in the next level.
Something I might add to this: you have to have rapport with someone before you do that.
Yeah, I mean that's a given. You need rapport always
with someone, because it will sound very intrusive if you ask questions like that. If you don't have that,
you can soften the question. Oh, I'm just curious, I was wondering, and you can always throw in there, oh, you don't have to answer, but I was just curious, and then ask the question anyway. You know, they call it softening the question.
Yeah.
So, Elijah, did you say that you don't need a rapport with somebody?
You don't need rapport, but it's always welcome. You know, it's like rapport always makes everything easier. You know,
well, simply, I think
rapport makes everything easier, and exponentially so. You know, like if you have good rapport, it's gonna be so much easier.
Someone will tell you
there's no reason to not have rapport
if you don't have rapport with them.
No, I'm a person. Charles knows that for some reason I'm very talented in making people arguing with me. But you know, if somebody is shouting their rights and they, well, not rights, they the way they see the situation, and they will say, don't you think that you can do whatever? I don't really have a rapport, positive one, with this person in this very moment, but by softening and asking them what was so important, what fired it up, I can drill to the reasons why they actually reacting in a certain way in a certain situation. Am I right or not?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You should, you pace before you lead. You know, you always pace first.
If you have angry,
can we keep
you want to stay on the subject? Yeah,
subject a little bit.
Yeah, we could talk about it afterwards, maybe when he's done with the recording. We can put a pin in that and come back to it.
But I'm assuming one of his questions would be a lead in this situation, right?
The lead is at the end, you know.
Yeah.
At the end, when I was using the information, because every time I repeat something back to him, it's pacing. I'm still pacing him.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Pacing him. Yeah.
Right.
And then, but every time when I make the suggestion, oh, you can start to live the life where you do build relationships, where you do have more confidence, where you are building bridges, where you are, you know, living your what was it? Living
purpose.
Living your purpose. And there was another very key phrase in there, being your true self.
Yes.
Yeah, being my real self, he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I start use that to then go forward in time and say, well, what will you do next? So that you can be that way for always, you know, that's then the lead.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Can we do a value solicitation on Jon now, if you're willing to participate, Jon, so that you know what it feels like to have this kind of experience? Are you up?
Of course, yes, yeah, sure.
Okay, so
who wants to have a go?
I will, if you like. I was going to say, I'm curious, Jon. What is it in life that really makes you tick? What inspires you? What ignites your soul? What's your passion?
So, I'm an actor, but more in a way, I see myself as kind of like an artist. You know, acting chose me. Like my mom could see it when I was like 3, like she knew before me. And So when I started to live this dream and to go for it, that's when everything was happening. But for me, the true reason, the reason why I do it is because I feel like I have something. There's something about me. I have something to give and to this world. And if that would be missed in this world, like something that so beautiful and raw, like just me, I want to give the world, I want to give me. And that's why I do it.
Okay. And what's important to you about, I'm curious, just to help me better understand you, what is it that's important to you about being able to give to this world and to share your, that something that you have to give?
What is it? Could you go like, what do you mean?
Well, what does it really mean to you to be able to give to this world? What does that mean to you?
So like when I look around, when I observe a lot, I see the beauty in the world. I also see like a lot of like, like the pain and a lot of people are sleeping. And I wouldn't say that I'm fully awake, but to kind of have this thing of me seeing things and being able to be like an inspiration, to have this light. There's this light about me, and when I can just walk through the streets and to just kind of, what's the name for it, to spark it to people, to wake them up in a way, and if that was your question.
That's a pretty good observation. So to be able to see the beauty in the world and to awaken yourself and to awaken, to inspire others and awaken that spark within them. And when you have all that fully and completely, how does that feel? What does that do to you?
It's freedom.
Freedom.
Total freedom.
Total freedom. Freedom. So freedom is something that that's a pretty important value to you.
Yeah. I see myself like, it's funny, I just had this conversation with a really good friend of mine today, and I see this picture, this vision, when I am in an interview and someone just asks me, what do you want right now in this moment? And I just say, nothing. I'm satisfied. So that's the feeling, like the ultimate, to just be satisfied.
To be satisfied.
Because I have everything.
That's wonderful. As I elicited those, as I asked you those questions, how did you feel?
The first questions?
Well, as we went through them, when I started asking you about what it was that's important to you about giving to the world, and then we moved into to awakening that light and inspiration, and seeing the beauty in the world, and we moved up to freedom. I mean, Did you feel any shift in your emotions?
Yes, I could feel like the deepness. It went deeper and deeper, and it like until like once I said the word freedom, that was the moment where when you it was like a ooh, that's the call.
That's what I meant when I said that when you hit someone's highest criteria or value, you introduce the most profound pleasure state, the trance inside someone. I don't know whether anybody else observed, but your eyes lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know I don't know what Elijah would like to add to this.
I mean, he doesn't need anything. He has everything he needs, right? Already.
That's beautiful.
So we don't need to give him anything more. You know, just remember it, you know, so that you know you can easily bring it back anytime you need it. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to feel that freedom on demand.
Let me ask.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ask one more question to you there. I mean, just suppose someone came along and there was a time machine. If you could reach out, say 5 years from now, having accomplished all of the things that you wanted to accomplish, you were able to bring back all of the knowledge, all of the wisdom, and all of the understandings, and speak to that younger version of you that sat where you are, right here, right now. What advice would you give to that younger version of you?
So the younger version would be me now.
Yeah. If you could, if you could imagine yourself standing there, the life you lead and all the steps you got to take there, and having accomplished everything that you need to do, what advice would you give to this version of you right now that would allow you to get there faster?
I would say you have everything you need. Just trust yourself and everything will come the way it's right for me.
That's really profound.
I forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hold that thought now. Now you brought it into consciousness. Hold that thought in your mind and amplify it, make it stronger.